history of O'Meath and Warrenpoint, they were always trading together. Years ago there used to be a ferry at Narrowwater.
In the early part of the last century, Warrenpoint and Carlingford Lough was a hub of tourism. People came from the east coast of England and far fields to spend their holidays here in Warrenpoint.
I live on the northern bank of the Clanray River. I continuously look across there. I see it as somewhere very close, but it is quite difficult to get there.
But if you look over my shoulder here, that's O'Meath. That's how close we are. But if I was to get there, it would be 40 minutes, possibly longer getting to Uri.
My mother and them was growing up, they came to work in Warrenpoint and they would travel home via Narrowwater in a boat at the time.
My father-in-law, who lived in the area in the 1950s and talked about the boats and everything else moving back and forward, that was very much closed down when the Troubles started and the border became a real border in every meaning of the word. And particularly Southerners were very reluctant to go north.
The railway stopped. The connections across the ferries in the 50s stopped. So basically we're now a really divided loch.
That's our natural hinterland there. We're divided. In an island of divided people, our politicians are keeping us divided.
The social connections that have been around this loch for millennia have been in many ways cut off by the border.
There are children a very short distance away who don't know the children on this side of the loch.
In O'Meath, people have to go right down the coast and right up towards Dundalk to get post-primary education. That's a connection that could be re-established.
People will sit in Carlingford and say, I'm not driving into Newry and into that traffic and then back out the other side. And if people are in Greencastle, I think you have the same attitude.
The connections here used to be, people used to shop across the loch, used to come to the doctor and dentist across the loch, but that's all stopped.
We're sometimes forgotten a little bit here, and yet we have so much to offer.
When you say you're from Warrenpoint, they immediately do. People of my generation and indeed some younger people know that Narrowwater is infamous for that incident when 18 British soldiers lost their lives at Narrowwater Castle. Is a blight on our community.
It takes, a generation often and more to actually remove that. But you can accelerate the process, and you accelerate the process by sensible cooperation and economic development.
Sometimes people still have the image of days gone by where there's barricades and soldiers and there are going to be checkpoints and things like that.
We've got to leave that behind, and that's a good reason. We see that as a plus actually for why we should be shouting more for this bridge.
I think the bridge is the link that actually will make it work. I mean, it's not just a tourism project, it's also for the local people, it's also to allow commuting between the two jurisdictions.
People allow in this part of the world what basically are jurisdictional issues to interfere with much more pragmatic development issues. For example, continental Europe has learned to deal with this. There are many examples of cross-border areas coming together to develop both sides of the border.
Border regions are protected under the Good Friday Agreement. That hasn't happened.
The McArdle report shows that the deprivation rates in Newry and in Dundalk are the poorest and worst along the border region. The impact that the Troubles had, and not just from 1970 but from 1920, have been so significant that they've actually damaged the economic structure of both jurisdictions.
There was a demand for the bridge, the people spoke, and we covered every angle that was necessary to get the EU granting for the bridge.
Everybody was so excited that it was actually maybe just going to be there, it was within our grasp, and then it was all taken away from us, which was really, really disappointing.
We were sure that the bridge was going to come, and we went in for planning permission for a new hotel with 80 rooms, and we're still patiently waiting on that.
Unfortunately, at the very end, there was a shortcoming in the funds.
It'd be a drop in the ocean what it really would cost us to get that.
We wouldn't be interested in building a new hotel unless the bridge is built.
This could have easily been met by both governments, and that it was a failure of politics on both sides that allowed this to happen.
It would be inconceivable to actually allow a border in modern European terms to actually interfere with development. And this compromises no jurisdictional issues whatsoever.
We are beginning to create a hub here in Dundalk, and PayPal, eBay, Prometric and other American companies coming in. There are similar situations in the north, but we need fluidity between the two jurisdictions to allow both working and tourism to develop.
The barrier to economic development in this area, in the whole Carlingford Lough area, is that the Narrow Bridge is not there.
So the bridge would connect our cultural, social and economic interests and provide a better standard of living and an economic driver for us in these communities.
The Mournes, Carlingford Mountains, it's all at our fingertips and needs to be witnessed and experienced and enjoyed.
And we have to think carefully of what we're actually leaving and providing for future generations.